Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for episode 5 of season 4 of Black Writers Read. My name is Nicole Young Martin, and I'm the founder and producer and host of this series. Today, I have some amazing news for people who have been following us from the start. I am hosting Black Writers Read today for the first time as Dr. Nicole Young Martin. I presented my dissertation research almost 2 weeks ago, and I'm working on the final manuscript of my dissertation. Thank you all for supporting me on this journey, and I'm excited for the next path. So let's go ahead and get today's conversation started. Black Writers Read showcases, celebrates, and honors the words, work, and traditions of Black writers from across the country, across genres, across experiences, and across the African diaspora. Black Writers Read is a behind-the-scenes conversation into the craft and what it means to create as a Black author in today's society. Since starting the series during the summer of 2020, we've hosted over 50 authors representing 10 plus genres from 4 countries and 14 states. Today, we welcome Kerika Fields. Kerika Fields is a Brooklyn, New York-based writer and photographer whose work has been published and exhibited widely. She is the author of With Your Bad Self, oh my God, I love that title, which was published by Jacaranda Books, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and released on November 29, 2022. Happy almost birthday. With Your Bad Self is a coming-of-age love story set in an economically challenged Brooklyn on the precipice of World War II, where love conquers all may not be true this time. Her debut book, He's Gone, You're Back, The Right Way to Get Over Mr. Wrong, I wish I knew about this book a decade ago, was published by Kensington Publishing and released in 2010. She has covered current events and the arts and entertainment scene in New York City for over 2 decades. Her articles and photographs have appeared in the Amsterdam News, Black Elegance, Caribbean Life, The Daily News, Honey, Savoir, The Source, Spice, Variety, Vibe, and online at abff.com, bus.com, curlynikki.com, soulhead.com, and twonight.com. Kerika Fields' photographs have been exhibited at the African American Museum of Philadelphia, the Brooklyn Historical Society, the Brooklyn Public Library at Grand Army Plaza, Brooklyn Moon Cafe, Corridor Gallery in Brooklyn, 5 Miles Gallery in Brooklyn, 40 Acres Art Gallery in San Francisco, the McKenna Museum in New Orleans, and the Rush Arts Gallery and I hope I pronounced this correctly, Leica Gallery in Manhattan. She currently lives in Brooklyn with her husband, daughter, and the spirit of her cat, Smokey. Learn more about Kerika and all her other work by visiting withyourbadself.com. Throughout our conversation, I'll be sharing her social media handle and also her website. Can a love story survive in an economically challenged Brooklyn on the verge of World War II? Marie and Benjamin are in love, but World War II is approaching, and so is the military draft for Benjamin. But one adversity after the other forces them to separate. Heartbroken, Marie can only keep surviving while hoping that Benjamin comes back to her. But while he's away, another man comes knocking on her heart. Pushed to marry him by everyone around her, Marie needs to make a tough decision, waiting for Benjamin and following her dreams to see the world or move on with her life with another man. I'm beyond excited to take a deep dive with Kerika about this amazing novella. I had so much fun reading it. For those of you who are new to Black Writers Read, here's the format of today's conversation. Kerika and I will chat about her book and writing career. If time remains at the end of the conversation, we'll open it up to questions and answers for those of you who are joining us today. We have viewers both from Facebook and YouTube. If you have a question, please feel free to include it in the comment section on the platform where you're joining us from today. I will compile the questions and either pose them to our guests following our conversation or insert them during an appropriate time within our chat. I'd now like to bring Kerika onto the virtual stage.
Hi.
Hello.
Congratulations, doctor.
Thank you.
That's a big deal. Smarty pants.
I'm trying. It's my 4th degree. Tons of money to the federal government.
Wow. I have too, but I don't have a doctorate.
Thank you. So before we go into the conversation today, Kerika, I definitely want to say one of my favorite genres of books is the coming of age story. And I love how you created the character of Marie. Because typically coming of age stories, I feel like don't push the boundaries like yours do. It challenges, you know, how she sees herself, the position of her family, her relationship with her family, and then also her love life. So there's just so much that I think that's brilliant about your book.
Thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. And coming from that age group, I barely do what I do. Do you remember 19, 16, 17? And you're grown, but you're not grown.
Yep.
And you have these women emotions, but you don't necessarily have the independence that you will eventually have. So your family and your situation plays a big role in your life at the age, at all times, but definitely at that age.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you picked up on that.
Yeah, I love that. And I do have a question about that later. So I first want to start off by asking, what is the origin story of With Your Bad Self? I want to know the story behind the title, and also why this novella right now?
Well, I tell people truthfully, it is kitchen table stories told to me by my grandmother, whose name was Marie. And the character Robert was my grandfather, but all other names have been changed. So it's not a true story, because I did fictionalize some things and villainize some people, some characters, just for entertainment purposes. But with your bad self is just a saying. I know black people always say it. Go ahead with your bad self. Go ahead with your bad self. And it's something my grandmother always used to say as an affirmation. Go ahead with your bad self. Or sometimes it was a comment like, okay, go ahead with your bad self. Like, you think you're cute.
Yes!
It can mean a lot of things. But it ultimately means, in my experience, it's an affirmation. Like, go ahead with your bad self. A hater could say it too. But it's something my grandmother always said to us. And she has a lot of grandchildren, my brothers and sisters, and my mom and all her siblings. So with your bad self was just something that she always said to us. So that's why I use the title. And I was hoping that people would be familiar with it. People in the Black community would be familiar with it. And just it's not even a Black thing. It's an American thing. I think if you say with your bad self, James Brown said it. Who else? A lot of people. Sly Stone, everybody.
Yeah, I love specifically how American this book is, how Black this book is, how African American this book is. It seems like, especially because Marie straddles the two worlds of trying to be an adult and still with her family. I love just how expansive the experience is. And also too, I love that the title, what I love about the title is what type of character you're getting out of Marie. You just know it from the title. And I love that titles is kind of like that opening door. And definitely with this book, that is definitely it. And by the way, my middle name is Marie. So Marie Young. Yeah, my mom's middle name was Marie. So I was reading, I was like, wait a minute, what?
You never know.
Yeah, I was like, are we related? Am I related to the story?
You never know. You never know.
With Your Bad Self is a coming-of-age story set in New York City during the Great Depression and World War II, following the lives of Marie, her mother and siblings, Missy, Benjamin, and Mr. Connor, which that was the other thing that I loved about this book, is it is also so Brooklyn and so New York. So I get a chance to travel there a lot, and I saw a lot of this, even though it's decades before. So it's very New York as well. I love that Marie, at 19 years old, straddles adulthood and the naivete of the teenage years. I'd love to know why these particular character traits, and what do they contribute to a historically situated fictive narrative?
Again, I believe that, this is a snippet from my grandmother's life. She lived to be 91, RIP. And so she had a full life, So I could have taken the married years, I could have taken the widowed years, I could have taken the grandma years, but I took the preteen, teenage, because she's 19, she's not 20 yet. She's like right there. I took those years because I think they're very pivotal in anybody's experience. And I wanted readers to kind of like know her essence, because I think that, and maybe I'll speak for myself in my journey, I'm not the same person I was at 19, even though I am, but I'm not, but I am, but I'm not, but I really am, but I'm not. You know what I mean? So we all grow and change. And I wanted to create a character that lives on in literature that people can relate to, and that really kind of get her sassiness and get her spirit. Because, you know, as you age and as you mature, sometimes that spirit can mellow, it can ebb and flow. It's not as forceful as it was at 19. Again, I'm speaking for myself. But that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start it there. And with Benjamin and the Robert characters and the Missy characters, you know, we can't do, you know, without our good girlfriend. We always lost. If you have a good one, you're lucky, or you have more than one, you're lucky and blessed. And you know, Black men are often vilified or seen as insensitive, but they're sweet. Some of them, you know, and they have feelings too, and their stories matter also. So I wanted to not only create a good character in Marie, but in the people that she loved and that were surrounding her on her journey.
Mm-hmm. Like that scene where Benjamin first tried to get into her apartment. I was like, I've had this happen. Like
he's only a man. Can you blame him?
Yes, it's just like just the book is just, it's also just so real. Like, even though this book takes place in like the 30s, I'm like, I've had so many experiences that's similar to Marie's. Like, I love this book.
Thank you. And I'm glad you said that also, because some things in my opinion are timeless. It's like love is timeless, falling in love is different. You know, it might be different now that people are meeting online, or, you know, I met people at parties, or, you know, a little more organically, but I still think the whole fall in love experience and having someone pursue you is a beautiful part of life, but it's a part of life. Of course, all, you know, ages and races. It's a life experience that I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, and also too, I forgot to mention at the beginning, you're my very first romance author, and I've wanted to talk about that genre for so long, and I'm like, nobody's sending me romance authors. And next when you emailed me last year, and I was like, yes. I was
You know what? It's so funny that you say that. I'll take it, but I don't consider myself a romance author. I don't consider, but then again, you know, this book could be considered a young adult book. It could be a coming of age. When I was writing it, I really wasn't categorizing it. I was just making it, you know, fiction. That's all I knew. Mm-hmm. And I knew it was going to be a novella because I didn't want to make it too long. I wanted people to want more, which many readers have said, oh God, I hated it for it to end. So that was my intention. But this is it is a romance novel. It is. And now that I see that, I'm working on another one, a different one, because I'm a romantic. Let me just admit it.
And that's something like one of the reasons why romance is because I like romance and memoir. And the reason why I like romance in particular is because you don't really see us in love stories in television and film. And I like that in books because you don't get the images and the story like just spoon fed to you. You can project your own experience onto the characters.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Like the only reason why I say I didn't consider it a romance novel, because I feel like a lot of romances are formula. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This book has a happy ending, but it doesn't. You know what I mean? It does, but it doesn't. Right? So I hesitated to consider it a romance novel because it's not like, they meet on the farm and he's a rich rancher and his father and they fall in, it's not that soap opera-ish. Like when I think romance, I think Hallmark. Hey, you know what I mean? Hallmark movies, Hallmark books.
Yeah.
This is not that. This is not that. But it is romance.
Yes. And that's one of the things I think that we do in the Black experience is almost all of my authors that I've had on, they push and challenge genres. It's like, romance, which has a weird, this is why I'm like very careful about what I call romance, because there's the, Danielle Steele novels from back in the day, but then
She was good though.
Yeah, exactly. She was amazing. But then there's stories like this where I can actually see myself and it's more realist and it's more like a nice little escape for someone like me. There's just so much I love about this book.
Nice. Thank you.
Yes. Marie's family plays a huge role in the text. Why do they play such a dominant role, and how does situating family in this way contribute to the coming of age story? I ask this question as many coming of age stories I know of, like I talk with my students, especially like we read Their Eyes Were Watching God and we talk about Disney movies and things like that. The family is not involved as much. With the protagonist running, so with this, you have the protagonist running away from her family but wanting to stay, and her family present is quite different. So can you talk a little bit about the role of the family in this particular book?
Oh, wow. Thank you for picking up on that also. Again, I come from a beautiful big family. I have 2 brothers and 4 sisters. Is it 3, 4 sisters? And we are, we're not like on each other all the time, but we're there for each other. So I come from a family that's very supportive and present in my life. And I make decisions selfishly, obviously, and nobody gonna tell me what to do. But I make decisions with that in mind, with that support in mind. And I'm aware that is an anomaly. Not everyone has that. And so I did want to highlight that to show how the family structure does affect, depending on the person or the character, it does affect your decisions, your sense of responsibility, your sense of obligation. But at some point, what point do you make choices based on just solely on what you want and need? That's the coming of age of it. That's the growing up of it. That's the maturity of the character. So I had to show the family strength and the family dynamic to show what the character was up against when making certain choices.
And I also do love that her family does play that important role, because that also speaks to how much she respects her family.
Yes, especially her mother. I'm like, lady. But that's a sign of the times too. That whole dynamic is like, I don't think that people take so much into account their mother or their parents' opinion as much as she did at that time. But again, what they had been through, what they had survived together prior to the love story coming into Marie's life, that's why she chose to be so reverent to her mother's decision, her mother's instructions.
So I want to go to Mr. Connor, Mr. Robert Connor, Bob, as he'd like to be called by Marie. His world is quite different from Marie's. Why does Mr. Connor play a pivotal role in her journey?
He's there to present her with options. He's there to present her with. He's the opposite of Benjamin, who is tall and handsome and young and not as established, and and then you have Mr. Connor, who's a little more experienced and a little more successful, has a little more to offer her materially. So I thought that was important to bring him into the story, to juxtapose Benjamin, for her to see all different types of options that she had. And, his love, I think it was based on initially kind of lust. She was a beautiful girl. She was young. She was bubbly. But I think that once they got to really know each other, they appreciated and loved each other.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that I appreciated about Mr. Connor, and I think this is the historical part of it, and I had a guest on last season, Tony Ann Johnson, who talked a lot about the middle class Black experience and how that is absent from a lot of text. And I'm like, people don't realize there were Black people with wealth and money and businesses
And
back in the
education. Yes. 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 Yeah. And that's one of the things I wanted to, again, Robert Connor, that's my grandfather's name. I did use that name. So R.P. to Robert Connor. He did go to Howard University. He never graduated. He did work at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Excuse me. In the electrical department. I'm not sure if he was an engineer. He died when I was 2 or 3.
Oh.
So I don't really remember him. But again, that's my father's mother. And so these are kind of stories that have been told over the years. And I've tried to fictionalize them and make them readable and enjoyable. But
yeah, so this I think leads into the next question. And now I'm understanding why your voice, at least in this particular book, reads similarly. The narrator within With Your Bad Self moves similarly to those of novels by like our legends, Zora Neale Hurston, Alice Walker, Gloria Naylor, and Toni Morrison. Like I'm getting chills just speaking out their names. Like they're just
yeah, wow,
yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. But I also think that that's because we're trying to. I can speak for myself. Obviously, I can't speak for Toni Morrison. But I think it's because for me, I'm from Brooklyn. I can speak a little. I can turn it on and off. I can do it. Most people, if they hear me, they know I'm from New York. They know I'm from Brooklyn. But there's a way of speaking. Some people think I'm from down south because of the way I say certain words. But my father was from Mississippi. And I think there's a way of speaking and expressing ourselves verbally as Black people that I don't want to get lost. Because I have some friends that I can say something out the side of my neck and she will totally understand what I meant and what I said. You understand what I'm saying? And everybody else just heard, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
But her mother was from Georgia. So I definitely know that was something that Zora Neale Hurston was consciously doing as an anthropologist of our culture. And I know that she had come up against some ridicule within the Harlem Renaissance because she was writing the way we speak in a certain way. She wasn't writing the educated way to speak. She wasn't writing the proper way we speak. She was writing the way people were speaking in Florida, down in the South. That was, that were direct ancestors, the direct lineage of slaves. You know what I'm saying? So she was speaking. She made a point of trying to present that in her work, and I wanted to do that in this book specifically. I wanted to make them say ain't and with your bad. So I could have said it with your, you know what I'm saying? I wanted to be that because that's how we speak amongst ourselves. And also I wanted to carry on my grandmother's voice. She's not with me anymore. She's not with us anymore, but anything I can hear her saying or her advice or her jokes or even her ridicule or her recipes, Thanksgiving is coming, I hear it in her voice. The way she said it. And she was from South Carolina. She spoke in that blackity black. I mean, what else do I say it? Vernacular. Mm-hmm. And I wanted that to ring out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you for that, because one of the other things that I love about connecting the work to those particular authors is and this work too is about archiving a particular experience, because I would love for people 100 years from now to pick up your book and be like, oh, okay, this is what it was like back in the day. This is a very even though it's fictionalized, a very authentic take on what was happening.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't alive when this happened, and just like people that are not from Brooklyn, New York, it's rich with our help. We built this city. You know what I'm saying? We built this city. I really like the show, The Gilded Age. I think it's on HBO, and it has the characters all in the Gilded Age. Rich white people on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, but they do have Black characters. It has Audrey McDonald is one of the characters, and it's directed by Sally Richardson, the actress who's now behind the camera. But it's showing, like, when you see New York, they never show Black people, and I'm like, come on now.
Yeah, this takes me into, I'm gonna jump a question or two. Because like one of the things, and I don't want to assume this, but like, because I have one of my really close friends grew up in Crown Heights, and she talked a lot, even though she hasn't lived there in some time, she talks a lot about like how affirming living there was as a Black person with Caribbean ancestry, like just because there was just so many of her everywhere, and like just the positiveness about that. And that's why I think writing Brooklyn and New York City in the way that you did is so important in this book. So with yourself, living in Brooklyn and inhabiting New York City, for me, and I've never lived in New York City, but I visit a lot. I feel like it's a cultural mecca, both with like the arts and the Black experience that exists there. So how much would you say that your community and living someplace as rich in history, culture, and creativity contributed to your literary voice? And I'm thinking of this especially as a truth teller and Brooklynite, which I love that this description sits so prominently in your Instagram bio. This question comes from how vividly New York City shows up in With Your Bad Self. I'd love to know from you, how much would you advise writers to use their own backdrops and neighborhoods as inspiration for their work? And then would you advise against, and then when would you advise against using this particular narrative device?
That's an interesting question. Again, Toni Morrison always used to say she taught writing against what you know. She wanted you to come out, be totally imaginative and totally, even though at the same time, she did write about the Black experience. She didn't necessarily write about her grandmothers and her aunts, tangible. You know what I mean? But her characters were Black. She had white characters also. But to me, it depends on the writer. It depends on what type of story they wanted to tell. Hopefully I have more books in me, but I'm always gonna be from Brooklyn, girl. You know what I mean? So it's gonna come out in some way or another. And I love it so much. I live in Crown Heights. I've seen the gentrification. I've seen the change. I'm not supposed to be here. They don't want me here. And I'm here. And I got an afro.
Wow.
Okay. So, and where am I, and so I feel like just my very presence is mandatory for people like you that come to visit. I don't want you to come to Brooklyn and don't see no Black people, but it's happening. And, as for the Caribbean people, I live right up the 2 blocks away from Eastern Parkway, where they have the parade every year, the West Indian Parade. And this year it wasn't as populated as it usually is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe after COVID and stuff like that, but it wasn't. It used to be much more powerful and populated. So, back to your question, it's the writer. It's the writer's choice. That's the thing about writing. You can be creative. If you want to write about wherever you come from, there's Black people ever. You live in Connecticut. My sister lives in Connecticut with her husband and her 2 daughters. You know what I'm saying? And that's a different, even though my sister and her husband grew up in Brooklyn, my nieces grew up in Connecticut. They had the Connecticut experience. They went to school, the whole thing. So I think that it's up to the writer if they want to bring that, whatever their experience is, to the page. I don't see anything wrong with that. But at the same time, as a writer, I should be able still to write about a white girl from, France. if I wanted to, even though I've never been to France and I'm clearly not white. I should be able to do that because I'm a writer, and that's a part of the skill, in my opinion. But I don't think there should be any limits on what you bring to the table. But you definitely bring yourself to the table. You can't help it.
Yeah. And for me, it's so weird that like not to go too deep into this, but it's like I live in Connecticut now. I'm originally from Detroit, and I never expected that I would live in I live in a really diverse part of Connecticut. Like really like my neighborhood is probably 60% Black.
Beautiful.
And I never would have thought, but also too, as I'm getting deeper into Connecticut, like people in Bloomfield and Farmington, they're like, there, has been a very, very robust middle class African American families living just 12 minutes up from me. And this is one of the things as I'm considering, like now that I'm done with my doctorate, I'm going to return back to fiction writing, hopefully, is like really capturing the experience of where I'm based because of just a lot of misconception. And it was like before I moved here, I lived in Massachusetts for like 15 years.
Wow.
And it's not only super white, but weirdly progressive and liberal and weirdly racist. And so
weirdly racist.
It's weirdly racist, girl. And so just driving 20 minutes south, I'm now in this like little safe bubble of back, when I grew up in Detroit, which is like super, super Black. And it's just like, okay, I now, now that I'm thinking about it, I do wonder what type of writing is going to come out of me now because I'm in a space where I'm affirmed all the time. Because when I was living in Western Mass, girl, I was like, y'all need to see me because I'm blackly, blackly, Black. This is white. And it was always proving like who I am. Whereas now, where I live, because I don't have to do that, I am curious because I haven't written creatively in like a couple of years. I am curious as to what type of writing is going to come out now.
I'm curious too, and I'm looking forward to it because again, for most people, you say Connecticut, you think white people, but I don't because my sister lives there. But everybody on her block is white. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when she moved into the house, the man came to fix the plumbing and was like, "Oh, tell Mrs." And she was like, Mrs.
Yes,
it's my house. But so yeah, I think that's again, that's something that you should bring because I think reading in books is about giving readers insight into a world they might not have necessarily experienced firsthand.
Yeah, and which speaking of Black, Robin Roberts and her wife live in a town that's 20 minutes from me.
Wow.
I was like, are you serious? I found that out when they got married. I was like, I told my husband, I was like,
well, she can't go too far from the city. She got to be at ABC in the morning.
Right. I was like, we could have crashed her wedding. She lived 20 minutes away. Yes. So I want to start some questions about your writing career. So you've written substantially in terms of journalism, and then your first book is, and I hope I'm not labeling it incorrectly, but it's more like an advice, personal, like self-help.
It's a relationship. It's a self-help, self-help relationship recovery book. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So how did you arrive to writing fiction, and how has your literary voice developed since you wrote your first book?
Well, He's Going Your Back was an article I wrote for a magazine called Belle Magazine. It was a full-figured Black woman magazine. And I wrote an article about He's Going Your Back. And I got a lot of feedback. I was on a radio show and people were calling in asking questions. And I was expecting a lot of women, but men called in too. And I was like, wow, people really be going through it, when it comes to relationships. And this is not something, I wrote the article based on my own experience with my daughter, who was 2 or 3 at the time. She's 27 or 28 now. So it was a while ago, but I was young and I wanted to read a relationship book. I really couldn't find one that was totally directed at Black women, and that was like affirming, and it's kind of like convincing myself that it wasn't the end of the world, which it wasn't. But at the time, you think it is. So, and then again, I was doing a lot of journalism work that paid the bills for a lot of this print. I'm talking about print magazines, bro. When you have to type out your article and take it to the place or fax it. But anyway, so I was doing a lot of journalism work anyway. So that's how the book came about. And nonfiction, it was just natural for me to do a nonfiction book at that time. But, you know, out the gate as a person, you know, as Kerika, I always wanted to be a fiction writer. You know, that was the dream, you know. So, but I never really had the time or the resources to do it. So with this book, With Your Bad Self, it is my first fiction book. And my friend Roseanne, she sometimes she edits stuff for me. And I said that to her. I said, well, this is fiction, and you know, that other book was not. But she said, Kerika, you're a writer. You can write whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to limit yourself to fiction and nonfiction. Then, you know, James Baldwin did fiction and nonfiction. Again, not that I'm comparing myself to James Baldwin, but he did a lot of nonfiction. He did a lot of social commentary. I'm not there yet, you know. I try to leave politics out of it. I'm more into personal politics. But doing He's Going Your Back, it just gave me permission to continue to write. You know, it did well. You know, it wasn't like a New York Times bestseller, but it did well. And I got a lot of feedback, and a lot of people said it helped them. And so it affirmed me. It affirmed me to say, you know, maybe I do have something to say. So let me don't stop here. So that's how it affected my literary journey. And then here I'm at with Your Bad Self.
Yes. As a woman writer of the very specific African American experience, and I'm so glad that I didn't just assume it, because before we came on, you shared, and also too during the interview, that you do have family from the South. So you have a very African American experience. So why is it important for you, given this particular experience, to write fiction? How do you wish for your work to contribute to the literary canon? And then what is the responsibility, if any, that the genres you work in, independently and collectively, as done in With Your Bad Self, assume for the culture and society as a whole?
Ooh, girl, I'm gonna get I want my doctorate after this. Messing with you. Yeah. Again, well, for me, fiction just means fun, you know. And I'm at the point in my life where, you know, I just want to enjoy what I do. And you know, I can turn on the news and see facts, and I can, you know, nonfiction is very important. But at this point in my life, I do want to, when I show up at the page, you know, everything I'm working on is more creative. I do have a nonfiction book that I'll talk about later that I want to work on about my photography. But that's nonfiction. But again, I'm the subject. It's totally. But for fiction equals fun for me. You know, again, I could just I can pick any character. I can make up what they want to say. It's not so based on a reality or fact. So I can be a little freer. That's just my experience. You know, my inspiration to want to write fiction now. Maybe, you know, maybe I'll wake up and one day I'll have to do something nonfiction. I have something that's pressing to speak about the social conditions that are going on in the Black community in the world. But I see myself doing fiction, you know, because it's just fun. It's just in a whole different world. It's just a whole different. And I'm bringing myself with me. I'm bringing my friends and my family to the page. You know, I'm sure I'm gonna have in the book I'm working on now. It's actually a interracial love affair. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I'm bringing some of my friends with me in terms of, you know, supporting characters, you know, So definitely my experiences come with me to the page when I'm doing fiction, but I can just be more expansive. I don't have to be so literal when I'm doing fiction and factual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and thank you for it. So this is a question that I'm asking on the spot. So thank you for mentioning that you are a photographer, because I've had past guests who work in multiple like artistic disciplines. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So can you talk about, because you mentioned working on a book of photography of yourself? Can you share a little bit about what we can expect?
It's not on myself, but it's about, it's more, it's a memoir. It's a hybrid memoir about a Black girl who used photography and journalism to support herself and her daughter during the 90s, and that was me.
Oh,
And again,
wow.
I was doing a lot of articles, and I was like, wait a minute, if I give you the story on DMX, you're gonna pay me $150, but I give you a story and a picture, I'm gonna get, you know what I'm saying? So I started taking my camera to certain things. But again, when I went to Howard, I did study photography. I was always interested in photography. I did an internship at 40 Acres years ago, years ago. And Spike Lee had seminars at LIU, and they didn't pay me, but they paid for my film and developing my film, which was a lot of money. You know what I mean? A roll of film and developing a roll of film, that's like $30. And my prints. So I had a portfolio. So I don't know what to say. I think people can do more than one thing. I had a friend on my YouTube channel recently, Tyson Hall. He's an actor and a painter. But so, Miles Davis was a musician and a painter. Like, Robert De Niro paints. And I don't think that people should limit themselves, because I'm good at both. So why not do both?
Nice. And then what type of photography do you do? Because I remember seeing the post the other day, the shot of yourself on Wall Street. I was like,
I do mainly events. I do event photography. So that's concerts, parties. That particular shot was me for a company. They had a party at Cipriani's on Wall Street, but their clients wanted to go to the stock market. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, well, we at the stock market, which was fun. And they wanted pictures of it. But I do mainly event photography. I mean, I do some portraits, headshots, and stuff like that. And I do creative photography, candid photography. But I mainly do events, corporate events.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So before we go into the last question, so I'm going to rework this one a little bit, because you talked a little bit about the novella. So do you plan to write other novellas? And then also, if you wanted to share, like, what are some, because I know one of the obvious advantages is that it's a shorter book, but because it's shorter, you have to really, and this is another thing I liked about the book, you have to be very tight about the words that you choose, the characters, and all of that. So do you plan on writing a novella again? And then what are some, you think, advantages and challenges to writing novellas?
I think that the word novella kind of throws people off, but a lot of books, I bought some books to show you. Do you ever remember this book, Hero Was Nothing But a Sandwich?
Yes.
This was a novella, but it was a novella. It was under, I think a novella is under 40,000 pages or something. Wow. You know what I mean? Then they have, I didn't even know that she had written, Toni Morrison, she wrote a novella. I didn't know. This one has a foreword by Zadie Smith. I didn't even know she had written a novella. This is the only novella she's ever written. And I didn't discover it until after I had written my novella. What else? Like The Shawshank Redemption is based on a novella by Stephen King. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck is a novella. So it's really just a story that's just not long. Then I bought, look at this book. Tell me what I'm going to do.
Yes.
What am I going to do with this?
Oh, sweet Jesus, because I want to read it. I want to read it so bad. I didn't realize it was that big.
Oh, it's huge. So my husband brought it home. Somebody left it out. because we leave stuff out in the lobby, somebody left it out, and he brought it upstairs because he knows I like to read. I looked at that book like I don't know what to do. So I Googled it, and it's Oprah's book club. It got really good reviews, New York Times bestseller. And then a good friend of mine, Angela, who's a big reader, we always go back and forth with what are we reading next. She texted me the other day and said, I'm starting to read, the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois. And I'm like, I have that book, and I've been staring at it, and maybe I'll take it on vacation. But I don't know if I have it in me to write or read anything that long. Like, Lord have mercy. Edit. No.
Yes.
Say less. No. I'm just playing. No. But I don't know. I do. It's so funny. I was talking to my brother about this book, and obviously it has he can relate to it in a personal way because it's loosely based on our grandparents. But he was like, well, what's up with the Ida character? What happened to Ida? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if I did do another novella, I think I would expand upon, but I would have to totally use my imagination because nobody knows what happened to Ida. Nobody knows what happened to Ida. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows why. Nobody knows. So that would, I would expand upon that in a novella, and it would probably maybe a follow-up to this book because it's a character from this book that I'm interested in creating a story for, because we don't know. Our family doesn't know.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning too, because when you brought that book, and I'm looking at, I remember when it came in the mail. Barack Obama.
I would have never bought it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I hear beautiful things, so I'm not gonna limit myself. I hear great things.
Yeah, it's a great book, and she's actually speaking at it's public. She's speaking at a conference next year that I will be that I'm a part of as well, and I'm really excited to meet her in person.
Wow.
But one of the other books that I'm looking at right now on my shelf, when you pulled up that one, a book that I was like, when they announced it, because I loved his other memoirs, and they're shorter, and then they were like, you gotta get, and I pre-ordered it not long ago. Then the Barack Obama Promised Land book came out. I got the box in the mail. I was like,
I'm not messing with him either. I'm not messing with Barack.
What in the heck?
Things to do. Okay.
I was like, why is this book so doggone long? And then I was like, well, maybe I'll listen to the audiobook. Girl, I got it was like 9 hours. I was like, what?
I admire that. And maybe one day, you know what I mean? But I feel like when I speak, I talk a little bit too much, and I feel like I could say less, and sometimes saying less is a little more powerful. You know what I mean? So that's how I try to write. It's like I don't have to. Sometimes you want to, you get to a scene in a story. Girl and boy go to a date on a restaurant. I don't really need to know the entire color of the curtains of the restaurant. I want to know what they are saying to each other and what's happening in this interaction with these two people. This is what I want to get to. I don't really, unless it's pertinent to what's happening. I don't need to know that you can just say the curtains were, nice or whatever. I don't need to know that they were golden. It's just too much. But that's just me. Some people enjoy writing that and reading that. Reading the details and the nuances and the setup. But I'm New Yorker, like, get to the point. Chop, chop.
Yes, I love that. But I do want to read this book at some point. But it's so damn long. I was like, President Obama, what? Like, you have other memoirs. What do you have left to say?
It took me about a year to read Americana, and I'm glad that I did read it because it was a beautiful book. It was beautifully written. I love the story, but we all have Kindle, so we can, on the phone. But most books, I like to read the actual book. I like the way the book feels, and I read a lot in the bathtub, or at night. You know what I mean? So, I don't take hot, long baths every day. I take them maybe once a week or a couple times a week. So it's like I wasn't getting around to that book, but it was so long. It was so long, but it was good. But it was like,
yeah.
Girl, come on, girl. Tell me what's going to happen at the end.
Right. Which, by the way, I was speaking of other genres, and then I'll close this out. They were talking about now movies are becoming longer again, and should they put in an intermission? And I'm like, I remember. I'm about to give my I'm about to give my I'm about to give my age away. I'm 44, but I remember when the Malcolm X movie came out, and it was like 3.5 hours long, and I was like, thank you for that. Had an intermission in it, but I was like. But then there's like the Avengers Endgame that should have had an intermission. It was 3 hours and 40 minutes long. And I'm like,
people are saying that. People are saying that about the new, excuse me, my computer is dying. Did you Leonardo DiCaprio movie, which I want to see, the Flower Moon?
Oh, I didn't realize it was long.
It's 3.5 hours. I'm not going to movies to see that. You talking about your age? I'm 53. I'm not sitting through. I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom. I already know. I'm waiting for it to come on Amazon, and I'm gonna watch it at home. I'm gonna have snacks. You know what I mean? I'm gonna invite friends over. We're gonna watch the movie. Excuse me. Let me plug this in.
Oh yeah.
I already know I'm not gonna watch. I'm not gonna do that. And then I had people say that they felt that way. Excuse me, about what was the one that came out with Barbie?
Oh, Oppenheimer.
Oppenheimer was long. Yeah. Oppenheimer was long too. But there's something to be. I mean, if you got to tell it, like Malcolm X needed to be long. You know what I mean? He had a long life. It needed to be long. It was beautiful, every part of it. So some movies, I hate them. They just long for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a story to tell and it's a long, even a book. If it takes that long, tell it. Then tell it. Whatever it takes. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to. I ain't gonna be sitting in no movie theater for 3 hours.
Especially since they don't let you bring anything anymore. Because you can bring like a bag with a blanket and some food, and you can't bring nothing. And so you have to sit there for 3.5. No,
I'm not doing that. I'm not. Not me personally. I'm not doing that. Right now, I was on the couch. You'd be like, pause. Yeah.
Such a great conversation. And the last question that I have for you, Kerika, is what is next for you, and how can the Black Writers Read community support you in this journey?
Well, thank you for asking that. I'm working on another romance novel. I just started it a couple months ago. It's kind of fun. And then I'm working on, I finished a book. It's a memoir. It's called Flash and Circumstance. And it's really about my experience as a single mother in New York during like the heyday of hip hop, the heyday of Black arts. You know, I have a lot of photographs that I want to share that haven't been shared, you know, of like Gordon Parks. And I've had encounters with August Wilson walking down the street and certain things I've learned. Yeah, certain things I've learned on my journey as an artist. So that's what's coming from me. And eventually I'm going to do the Ida novella. And if people want to follow me, I'm at withyourBadSelf.com. You can subscribe and get updates when I do stuff like this and discuss books and anything that I have coming up. I've had some photo exhibits this past year. I don't have anything set up for next year yet. But again, if you subscribe to my website or just follow me on Instagram with _your_bad_self, you'll see what I'm up to. And hopefully buy the book. It's on Amazon. You can get it anywhere books are sold. And I think that you'll enjoy it. And it makes a great Christmas Kwanzaa gift.
Yes! It's coming up. Yes, Christmas Kwanzaa. Yes.
And for the reader in your family, or just for you. I'm glad that people enjoyed it, and it's a book I think I would have liked if I read it. Even if I didn't write it, I would have said, "Oh, that's a good book. That was juicy. That was cute." So,
like honestly, like I feel like too. I think it should become a book that's read in high school.
Well, Miss Educator, I was going to ask you that. I want to know how I can do that. We can maybe talk about that offline. I do because I have done last year. A friend of mine is a principal at a school in Bed-Stuy, and she has a career day every year. Excuse me, I got an eyelash in my eye. And I did participate with some other professionals, and I sat there and said, wow, and I did have copies of my book, but I was like, how could I get it into a curriculum? So I would definitely love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, because I can definitely say, because I teach college,
Uh-huh.
and especially since it's a short read, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking of proposing it for the class I'm teaching in the spring.
I
Because
would love that.
because I have to teach 2 foundational texts, and I'm
Okay.
like, this is such a short read. I'm like, I can probably insert it into the list of the class I'm teaching for next year. But there's just so much that I love about it, and why I say it needs to be read by high schoolers, because of just everything that it does for the genre and also for protagonists. And then lastly, I feel like young people, they do need to see a character like
Yeah,
this.
they can relate to the character because of the age, and it takes place in a different time historically, but I think that they can relate to a lot of what she's going through. And I do have a writers workshop coming up. I forgot, at the Brooklyn Library near me, but again, they only carry one, 2 or 3 copies of my book, so I'm figuring out how to get the book in the libraries and into schools. So if anybody can hit me up and let me know more about how to do that, I would appreciate it.
We
But
need to talk offline. So one of the programs that I teach for the BART micro college system, and there is a micro college at the Brooklyn Library.
okay,
Yes, and so I will make some connections
I
happen.
would appreciate that. I would
Yeah,
appreciate that. That would be
yeah,
beautiful. That'd be beautiful.
yeah. So Karika, thank you so much for being on today, and also for your patience too, because we had some, like, my computer did not want me to get on StreamYard last week, so I really
It,
appreciate it.
it happens. It happens. It's not the end of the world.
Yes.
Not the end of the world. Thank you for having me, and I'm so happy that you enjoyed the book. That's that's my ultimate reward, that another person enjoyed it. So I'm so
Yeah.
glad.
Thank you. So I'm gonna go ahead.
Tell your friends. Tell your friends.
Yes. Oh, trust me, I will. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap us up. So thank you so much, Karika. So thank you so much for joining us for episode 5 of season 4 of Black Writers Read. Be sure to check out our website at blackwritersread.com for past episodes and information on upcoming guests and events, including our virtual book discussion with Natasha Gordon Chipperberry about her book, Finding La Negrita, scheduled for Sunday, November 5th. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to keep up with episodes of both Black Writers Read and my other projects. Also, be sure to subscribe to the audio podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, as we post audio from each episode about a week or 2, given that I self-produce after the live stream. So thanks to all the viewers for spending your afternoon with us, and the sun is like setting, so you're seeing a little bit of the sun in my face. And more importantly, for ensuring that Black authors continue to matter. See you soon.